Next up in the group of cars that I got from Jerry is the 1984, I believe it is, Ferrari GTO. And this was, I think, the first in the line of cars, of Ferrari's hypercars that came after it, the F40, the F50, the Enzo, LaFerrari. I don't know if I'm forgetting any others, but this car was definitely one of the fastest cars Ferrari had ever built up to that time. And really beautiful car in its own right. This is another one that unfortunately the front left suspension has somewhat failed over time, so it's got a little bit of a lean there. But the paint still looks reasonable. It's a little bit chipped up in certain spots, but I gave it a quick wipe down earlier and it looks all right. And the interior on these, this one's a little dusty. You can see there it's got the Daytona style seats that are still on Ferraris today, very popular option. And this is classic Rosso Corsa over beige, I'm pretty sure. It looks like gray carpet. That's not a combination that you probably saw very much in real life. And this particular car, I think this is a Barago, so it has a trunk. Not particularly useful. But you don't get a Ferrari to do any big trips with luggage for the most part. And the engine bay here. A lot more chrome than it would have had in real life. But a very pretty body style. You can just tell from the center area in particular what it had in common with the F40. And but by itself, this was a very quick car, worth a lot of money today. This is the last of the cars that I got from Jerry, and like the Bel Air, it seems like no diecast collection is truly complete unless you have a 1984 Ferrari Testarossa. Another really important car from my younger days. Everybody had a poster on their wall of this car. And definitely, you know, it hasn't aged the best. It's a very period car, but it really defined the 80s in a lot of ways, especially those side strakes. Very unique design. Really, really wide rear end there. And the interior is actually very similar to the GTO we just looked at. It's a beige interior with gray floor. I don't think that was something you would have seen much in real life, but for whatever reason they did that on these models. And then the Testarossa, meaning redhead, V12 or a flat 12 engine. I don't know how much power they made. I would be surprised if it even made 350, which was a big number back then, but this was also a pretty big car. Had a trunk, although like the GTO, not going to hold a whole lot in there. But another iconic body style that you hear the name Testarossa and you immediately know what it is. And that's all thanks to this car. Next up is the 1990 Lamborghini Diablo in some kind of a purple or violet. And I kind of like this color with the beige interior. It looks pretty good. This paint has not aged really well though. It's I don't know if it's absorbed some imperfections over time, and even trying to polish it out, it wouldn't really clean up very well. I don't know if it's showing up on camera, but it's still a pretty car. Also made by Barago that made the two Ferraris we just looked at, so it's got similar construction. Interior colors are similar. Again, beige seats with gray flooring. And the engine kind of looks constructed in a similar way. Maybe a little bit more detail on this one and not as chromy. And this one has the scissor doors, as you can see, which is kind of a cool feature. It doesn't make it any easier to get in or out, but it tells people you've arrived. And then this one does have a trunk with bags in it, surprisingly enough, but no spare tire, which is just fine. And a very iconic car from my youth. I remember playing Need for Speed, the video game, back in the day on, I think it was PlayStation 1, and this was the car to beat. I think it went right around 200 miles an hour in real life and in the game, and it was very quick, especially off the line. This one had all-wheel drive. Cool car. And here we have the 1992 Acura NSX by Revell. And in other parts of the world, this car was known as the Honda NSX. I think North America was the only market at that time with Acura. But I remember seeing this thing and thinking it was like a spaceship. Really cool model. This was definitely, I remember getting it early on. I think it was that Christmas in 1992. And just what a interesting design it was. And in real life, it really got the attention of the Europeans and made them step up their game, because it was a heck of a car at the price. And the model itself, you see a lot of these old NSXs were red over black, so that's a pretty typical color combination. It was a mid-engine car. It's not so easy to get to. There we go. In real life, I imagine this car wasn't particularly easy to work on because it had, I think it was a trunk behind the engine there, so it made it a little more livable. But you probably didn't do much from up above. But that long rear end was always really cool. These still look amazing today in person. Very awesome car and very quick for its time. This particular car, I do remember, I think I just opened it as a Christmas gift, and somebody asked me how fast it went, and I happened to be sitting right next to our very lightly used treadmill in the family home, and I think this is the only car I've ever actually run up to speed. I don't know how fast in terms of scale it was going, but I had the treadmill going full speed and none of the wheels fell off. So this is my fastest model car to date. I would never do that again. Would love to have one of these in real life someday. They're not a very easy car to find at a reasonable price with low miles now. You can get a high miles one, not too expensive. But very happy to have this in my collection. And last but certainly not least, in my group of the 10 oldest model cars I've owned, is the 1989 Porsche 911 Speedster. And I think you mainly know it's a Speedster by that tonneau cover over the back seats. I'm not sure what other improvements this car had compared to the regular Carrera convertible, but this one is important for me just because I thought Porsches were cool, but this one, not within a few years of having my driver's license, I actually got to drive a red 911 convertible. It wasn't a Speedster, but very reminiscent of this car. So I was actually, and same color combination, so I was quite pleased about that. Definitely started a love affair with Porsche that continues even now. And this particular model doesn't look so bad these days, but maybe you can see from the patina on the windshield there, had a little bit of a mishap many years ago with this car. It was next to a candle that was burning and went to blow out the candle and actually blasted wax all over the car, and took a long time to get it presentable again, because I mean you can even still see remnants of it here. It was hard to get it all off, or get any of it off really, but without damaging the car. but otherwise it's held up pretty well. You can see the interior pretty easily. It's got some dust on it, but very iconic Porsche look. The engine opens, the old air-cooled flat six. And this car's front trunk opens, but I remember it always being really difficult, so I'm not going to try. And I think it had a spare wheel in there, but still some luggage space. Like every Porsche does these days, they got plenty of room up front. Very cool car though. My first, technically one of the first Porsches I've ever owned. Okay guys, so that was my video of the 10 actual oldest 1/18th diecast model cars I have. Hope you liked it and got a little bit of the history of these cars in real life and the actual models themselves. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.